Twisty puzzles like the Rubik's Cube have faces that are usually designed based on certain shapes, like a collection of squares, triangles, or even a mix of different shapes. I wanted to see what the puzzle would look like if the design was based on simple lines, so I created the circuit cubes. Let's talk about these puzzles in this episode of Custom Cuber. The design for the circuit cubes is composed of 6 lines that traverse 3 faces of the cube. In this colored version, each of these lines are shown in a different color. Each line starts and ends with a circle. I don't really know much about electronics, but I call this a circuit cube because the overall design kind of looks like a circuit board. The 6 lines on the cube are divided into 2 sets that cover 3 faces. Each set of 3 contains a line that goes straight on the first face, then traverses the next face diagonally, and then goes straight on the last face. The other 2 lines in the set intersect on the first face, then goes in a parallel direction on the second face, intersecting with the first line, then intersects with each other again in the last face. Each set of 3 shows point symmetry, which means that if you cut the design in the middle, every part of the design on one side has a counterpart on the other side, but in the opposite direction. Lastly, each set of 3 lines only interact with each other and never with the lines from the other set. So how does all of this information help us solve the cube once it's scrambled? Before I go any further, I would like to thank those who have already subscribed to the channel. But if you're new here and you like puzzles, I hope you'll consider subscribing. It's just one click away, but it helps the channel get the content out there to more people like you. I post weekly videos of new and original puzzles here, but you can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where I share behind-the-scenes posts about the cubes I make. It would be so awesome to see you and your friends there, so check out the links in the description below. And with that, let's get back to today's new puzzle. So, how do we solve this cube? I usually start with the faces that have the white or yellow diagonal line. I start with these because I know that these are the middle faces of the sets of 3 colors and they can serve as a good reference line for the other centers that have to be oriented a certain way. So from here, I can look for the first 4 edges so that I can form the cross of the first layer. I can get my first clue from this green center that I know faces this way, because it should end in a circle here. I know that the circle does not face here because having the circle here won't let the green part eventually intersect with the yellow center. So I know that this would be a green circle. Now I can find 2 green circles here, and I can't find it anywhere else on the cube, and this is because, of course, we only have 1 green line that starts and ends with circles. Now, this piece is a corner, but this one is an edge, so obviously, it's this one that will go here. So, let me place that here. There you go. So we have the green circle connected to the green center. Let's try another one with the same rule. This has to be an orange circle because, again, if the line starts here, we know that has a way to intersect with the yellow line here. This can't be oriented this way because the direction goes to the red and blue centers, which are not part of the set of 3 colors that orange belongs in. We know that red goes with white and blue. We also know that this center is oriented like this, because we know that the orange line has to end in this part as it cannot intersect with the face that has the white center. So let's look for orange circle edge. And let me just move that so that we can connect it with this one. We also know that our white center here is oriented correctly because the parallel red and blue lines can intersect with the white line. I can anticipate that the red line goes here to intersect with the white line, and the blue line goes here to intersect the white line as well. Now let's look for the other two edges. We know these edges include circles, and we also know that the circles for the other set should be here. Of course, I can't have the blue circles here because that way the blue line can't intersect with this part. So this blue center is correctly oriented because the part where the blue circle should go is not facing that way. Which means that if this blue line is going here, and we know that blue intersects with red, the red line goes here, so this should be red. And we also know that this line goes here, so this should be red as well. So I'm looking for an edge piece that has two red sides. And there it is. If we look around the cube, we won't find any other edges that shows two red sides. So let me go ahead and place that here. Now, should we orient this a certain way? Actually, no, because it looks the same either way. So we just place this in any way possible. If we put this the wrong way though, we might end up with a permutation that would make it impossible to solve the cube. We'll figure out later if this is correct. If we end up with a cube that is unsolvable later, we can just flip this and we'll see if that works. Okay, now for the last edge here. Because we knew that the blue circle should be here, the red circle connects to the red center, so it should probably be here. So this one should be oriented like this because circles are always in a straight line, but this should be red. Of course, we're not solving that. We're solving this layer. So we know that this red line goes here. It intersects with something that isn't white because white is our middle part here. So this should be blue. And we also know that this line goes here straight to another blue part. So like the red edge, this should also be a full blue edge. Let's look for that here. So let me move that. And then let's place that blue and blue edge here. Okay, there you go. So we now have the correct edges for the cross. The edge and center match here. These are matching as well. They don't look like they match, but they will make sense later. These are matching. And like the other side, these don't look like they match, but they do. Now for the corners. Actually, some of the corners here are already correctly placed. Like this one. We know that this one is correct because orange goes here. It should intersect with something. We know that that's green. So for sure, this is a yellow part. We also know that white goes here, so we know this is white. Of course, it's going to continue, so we know that this is also white. There's actually another corner that looks exactly like this. So it's here. As you can see, it has the yellow part and the two white parts. And this one, of course, goes to the opposite corner. We have the first one here, so the other one should go here. Like I said earlier, this has point symmetry, so whatever is on one side should be on the opposite side. Now let's place this corner here. And there you go. Now we know that this should be an orange circle because that's the only thing missing from this set. And we already know that the first orange circle was an edge. So this definitely belongs here. We have already also completed this set accidentally, which means that all of our corners are in place. So we're done with the first layer. Okay, now let's solve the second layer edges. Let's flip the cube over and let's see what we are looking for. So in this case, we know that this is red because this line continues here. And then we know that this is green because this continues here. We have the red and green edge here. Let me just place that. There you go. We have a red and green edge. For the next one, we know that this is yellow and that this continues on as white. We have an edge here, but we have a duplicate here. Now, how do we know which ones should be placed here? We don't. So we're going to take a guess. I'm going to assume this one is the correct edge. I'm not sure if some cubers would actually know which one is correct. Maybe there's a permutation that can help us figure out what goes here. But I'm not aware of that, so I'm just going to guess here and assume that this is the edge. Okay, so there goes our yellow and white edge. So for the next one, we know that this is blue, and we know that this is orange. There you go. Oops, nope, not that one because that's a circle. Oh yeah, the edge is still here, so let's find the one that can be placed here so that we can take it out. This is a yellow and white edge from here, so it should be this one. Again, we're not sure if this is the correct one, but we're going to take a guess. Now we've freed the blue and orange piece. It should be this one. We will be placing that here. Now we're done with the first two layers. We only have the last layer left. We're going to start with the edges again, and we have some clues here that can help us figure out which ones are oriented correctly. We know that for this side, the red, white, and blue circles should be in this area, and here as well. We also know that the red, white, and blue lines never interact with the yellow line because they're not in the same set. So we know that, for example, this edge is incorrectly oriented because this is the side that should be on top. But this other edge with the blue line on this face is obviously oriented correctly. For these other two edges, we have no idea if they are correctly oriented, because even if we flip them, they're still going to look the same. But we know that when we're building the edges for the last layer, there can only be several possible permutations. We can have 2 correct edges, 4 correct edges, or no correct edges at all. In this case, we know that 1 is a correct edge and 1 is an incorrect edge. So we can assume that we have a pair of correct edges and a pair of incorrect ones. We have to take a guess again because we don't know which one of these is correct. But let's assume that this one is the correct one. And then we have this edge that we're sure is correct. Let's use those edges as a basis for our algorithm here. There you go, and now we have correctly oriented everything. The red circle is now on the side like it's supposed to be. The blue circle remains on the side too. And of course, we still don't know if these are correct, but let's assume they are for now. Now let's see if they are in the right places. If I place this here, the others don't really match up. So let's try it this way. So this time the blue circle and the green line actually match with the other pieces, but the red circle and the orange line don't. So let's fix that. So the edges are now placed correctly. As you can see, the lines now match one another. And we can also see that the yellow center was correctly oriented because we have the parallel lines here intersecting with the yellow line. This doesn't always happen. Sometimes the center is not oriented correctly. In that case, we can apply some algorithms that will allow us to rotate the center. Now let's work on the corners. We'll see if we made some mistakes with the guesses that we made before. For example, here and here. And we made some guesses with the corners here and here. We're not really sure if this is supposed to be here instead of this one. So let's find out. To start, let's try to find a correctly placed corner. Like this one. This part, this red circle, should be here. And then it's a continuous orange line here. So this corner is supposed to be here, but it just has to be oriented correctly. This one is correct, but it should be oriented differently. This one is incorrect. And this one is incorrect too. Because we can't have a permutation where only two corners are incorrectly placed, I can make the assumption that we probably made a mistake in one of our earlier guesses. But I know that this could still just be an incorrectly placed corner. Just because it looks correct here and matches with the other parts, doesn't mean that this should be placed here because it can fit in another corner as well. I could still have 3 incorrect corners. So I will rely on my one correct corner and apply an algorithm that should help fix the 3 other corners. I won't be explaining the algorithms I am using here as they are the basic ones used to solve a regular cube. But if you'd like to learn how to solve your first cube, I recommend looking for a quick guide online and you should be able to solve your first cube in no time. You can eventually move on to something a little bit more advanced like this cube, and you will learn how to predict where the pieces should go and when something doesn't seem right. So this corner is still correct. This one seems correct, as well as this one, and this last one too. But this one is in the right place and is also oriented correctly. Now that's a permutation that we know can happen. 3 incorrectly oriented corners. So let's see how they should be turned. We are looking for a straight green line here, which means that this is the one that's supposed to be on top. The one on the right if the QB is on the right corner facing away from us. Let's check the other one. Is this the yellow line that we want here? Yes, it is. It's the crooked yellow line. And lastly, if we look at this, This is also the one we want here. Usually we don't have to check this as we can assume the layout from the permutation, but we just had to check to make sure that we are on the right track and made no mistakes with the other placements earlier. So let's solve the rest of the corners and make sure that they are oriented correctly. I am making a lot of assumptions about where the pieces should be placed, and this is because of the permutations that are expected from a 3x3x3 cube. If you are currently unfamiliar with these permutations, that's fine. There are a lot of guides online that can teach you what they are. I highly recommend learning more about them, but I hope you take the time to finish this video first because there's one more version of this puzzle that I'm excited to share with you. And there you have it, our circuit cube is now solved. You might have noticed that the cube I used to create the sticker mod is not a speed cube and can be hard to turn. It also has a few rough edges in the plastic. This is because I used a budget cube for this, especially since the purpose of this project is to show a proof of concept, not really to create a speed cube. For the custom design, I used matte sticker paper with an inkjet printer and I cut the individual pieces by hand. I also created another version of this puzzle that's slightly different. The design of this other cube shows the reverse or the negative of the colored one. Instead of having colored lines, this one has colored squares that have black lines cutting through them. This one also just has two colors on it, making it a little bit more difficult. Thanks for checking out the circuit cubes. This is the first time that I explored how lines can be integrated into a cube's design. I'm sure there is a lot more to explore with this concept. Before I end the video, let me leave you with one quick question. Knowing how we solved the 6-colored version, what would be your strategy for the blue and gray cube? I hope to hear your thoughts in the comments below and see you all next time.